Confessions 12. It was Alypius who prevented me from marrying, because he insisted that if I did so, we could not possibly live together in uninterrupted leisure, devoted to the pursuit of wisdom as we had long desired to do. In early adolescence he had had the experience of sexual intercourse, but it had not become habitual. In fact, he had been ashamed of it and thought it degrading, and ever since he had lived a life of the utmost chastity. For my part, I answered his arguments by pointing to the example of married men who had been lovers of wisdom, had served God well, and had retained the affection of their friends, whom they had loyally loved in return. But I was far from being the equal of these noble spirits. I was bound down by this disease of the flesh. Its deadly pleasures were a chain that I dragged along with me, yet I was afraid to be freed from it. And I refused to accept the good advice of Alypius, repelling the hand that meant to loose my bonds, as though it only rubbed my sores. Moreover, the serpent used me as a mouthpiece to speak to Alypius himself. Satan twisted my words into snares that were meant to entice, and strewed them in the path to trap the feet of his victim, who walked in all innocence with no burden to bear. Alypius could not understand how it was that I, of whom he thought so highly, could be so firmly caught in the toils of sexual pleasure as to assert, whenever we discussed the subject, that I could not possibly endure the life of a celibate. When I saw that he was puzzled by my words, I used to defend them by saying that there was a great difference between his own hasty, furtive experience and my enjoyment of a settled way of life. In his case, since he could scarcely remember the occasion, he might easily disparage it. But in mine, it required only the respectable name of marriage, and he need no longer wonder why I found it impossible to turn my back upon it. As a result of what I said, he began to wish to be married himself, not because he had yielded to lust for pleasure of this kind, but simply out of curiosity. He explained that he was eager to find out what it was without which my life, which he thought so pleasant, would seem to me no life but a misery. His mind was free from the fetters by which mine was enchained. He was amazed at my state of bondage, and amazement led to the desire to test it for himself. If he made the experiment, he was likely to fall into the very state which was the object of his amazement, for he was willing to make terms with death, and danger loved is death won. Neither of us was greatly influenced by the thought of such honor as we should earn by fulfilling the duties of maintaining a well-ordered marriage and raising a family. For my part, I was a prisoner of habit, suffering cruel torments through trying to satisfy a lust that could never be sated, while Alypius was being led by curiosity into a like state of captivity. This was the state in which we remained until you, O God Most High, who formed us out of clay and never desert us, had pity on our misery and came to our aid in a wonderful way that we could not understand.